And that's another benefit to using this tracking sheet, is that you can get away from using Triple Whale and some of those other third-party attribution platforms. But I wanted to talk about this kind of evolution of the MER tracker stuff that I've been dealing with specific clients on most recently. And one client came to me this last week, and their finance department wanted better profitability metrics, and they wanted it over the course of 12 months. So that's where this kind of all started from. So I kind of wanted to walk through that. And then just generally speaking, this MER tracker now, it's not so much a MER tracker anymore. There's a lot of other metrics that I've been using now for it. There is a version of this in the Drive. If anybody wants to look at it and use it for their own clients, it's basically just a plug and play situation. It is fairly time consuming to set up at the very beginning. This is kind of like a use case version of it that we're using for one particular client. So you need to actually go in and manually update all of your spend, traffic, customer revenue, all of that stuff. So it does take a while to do this, but after it's all set up and you're just doing it on a weekly basis, I'm just finding that when I do this, I'll just go in on Monday, update all of the metrics for that previous week, and it helps me get a better sense of how performance was that previous week, as opposed to just looking at the ad account and saying, oh, things look good or things look bad. And actually a good example of that is with this client. So if we look at last week's data, but anyway, this is kind of what I looked at the beginning of this week. So we spent relatively the same amount week over week on Meta, at least. I guess Google was pretty much identical as well. Traffic actually rose week over week. Revenue rose. New customer revenue dropped, but conversion rate increased. So it gives you a little bit more, there's more talking points I find when I'm going over this information with clients, as opposed to just jumping into the ad account and saying, okay, this campaign looks like it did well this last week. We got 2 orders here. We got 1 order. Let's try and do this and that. Where I think clients can kind of gloss over when you're talking specifically ad account metrics. Mm-hmm. But this is more information that they can actually use at a business level, I find. So you can say, you know, not only did our traffic increase, so whatever we did on Meta is actually performing better for us because it's much easier for this client because Meta is their only advertising platform. So we can say fairly definitively that whatever we did on Meta actually increased our traffic week over week, but our conversion rate increased as well, which is not typically the case. Usually if traffic is going to go up, conversion rate is going to stay equal or decrease. So yeah, you could just get a little bit more information to share with the client this way and say, you know, our new customers actually increased, but our new customer revenue decreased. So the AOV of our new customer is going down. And then it starts more of a conversation from this point. So you can say, what do we think is happening to these new customers where our new customer AOV dropped by $40?
And then you could correlate that to a first-time customer offer they might have had on their website that week or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly. Or maybe even a landing page that we're sending top of funnel traffic to. You can say, well, maybe as opposed to maybe this last week, what we did was we started sending it to a PDP as opposed to a collections page. And then we saw new customer AOV drop significantly. Well, we should probably revert back to what we had been doing the previous week.
Yeah.
So just something that I've been doing more frequently now, and it's kind of leading to more of larger business conversations as opposed to me just going and spending 15 minutes talking about Meta and then wrapping up a call. And then another benefit to this is if you look, so this last week, according to our global metrics, was a much better week. We actually increased revenue by just over 10K week over week. But if you were just looking at Meta alone, this last week kind of sucked. The 13th to the 19th, which is the same time period here, we had a 1.9 ROAS on platform, spending exactly the same, as opposed to the previous week, 6 to 12, we had a 3.18. So if you just looked at ROAS on platform, you would say, well, something you didn't work and you need to change it. But our top line metrics tell us that it's actually performing better.
Because that particular week, okay, 13 to 19, you went.
Yeah.
You were down from the week before.
We actually increased revenue, but
I was comparing it to the 6th to the 12th where it was 50,000. But on new customer revenue, it was up. It was down general, but on new customers, it was up. Right. Okay, I'm sorry. You're comparing 12 to the week 11. I was doing 11 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just comparing these 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
So week 10 here looks much worse than it did. But on platform, at least, week 10 looks great. So you could get skewed in a different direction if you just leaned into, okay, whatever we did this week, we should continue doing it because it actually didn't benefit the business. So this is actually how I'm getting to the point of calculating profitability a little bit more specifically than I have in the past. And it's by using the customer's COGS or the client's COGS, which I don't know if this is something that we ask in their Talify, or in our Talify, but if we don't, we probably should. And I probably should know that, but
that's COGS per average order value. Is that what that? Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the cost of goods sold per whatever AOV they give us.
On average, yeah, that's good. They're going to give you an average number there.
Yeah. So they give us. So we were asking previously for COGS per AOV, and then any shipping costs per AOV, and then other expenses, whatever that might be. And for this particular client, they gave us at a $90 AOV, they had a $62 total expense on that.
I see 145. Where's the 90 AOV?
That it's not included in this, but it was just something that they had given previously.
Okay.
So what I do from that is I take, 90, figuring out the percentage of whatever that COGS would be. So at a $90 COGS or a $90 AOV and a $62 COGS, it's about a 32.5%. So then we can take our average order value on any given week, multiply it by 32%, and it gives us our COGS on that week.
What's the 190 basis? What's the basis for that? That was
the AOV that they gave us, the $62 at.
Okay, 190 is not okay. It was I thought you said it was 90. I thought I heard 90.
190, sorry, maybe I said 90. Okay. But yeah, the date that they gave us this $62, their AOV was $90 or was 190.
So they have 62 COGS on 190.
Yeah.
So that sounds to me like their profit margin would be the reverse. It would be around 67 or 87, 65 to 70%.
Yeah, exactly. So what we can do from that
COGS percentage then.
Yeah.
32.5.
Take the 32.5 and multiply it by AOV on any given week, and we can get their COGS from that.
Okay, that's a COGS, not a profit percentage.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. This is their COGS percentage.
Okay, yeah.
Wow. So that way we're just not sticking with $62 because it's not a static number. AOV is always fluctuating. So just in this
particular, that last part again. Can you say that last part again?
Just AOV is not a static number. It's always going to fluctuate. So if we stuck with, if we stuck with $62 COGS, even though their AOV is dropped to 144, we'd be way off. Their profit margin would be totally skewed.
Yeah, their profit margin is going to go up when the AOV goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
So they're, in fact, all of those weeks that you've been tracking, they're all vastly over 90. And no, I'm sorry, it was 190.
190. Yeah. Okay. So we're actually much lower.
These are much lower than the 190. So their real COGS might want to get a new COGS number off 178, really, just to get a little bit more on. I mean, that's close enough, I guess. But
yeah,
but
it's
a lot
close enough. But if we want to give it to them like on a particular week, this is a ballpark way of getting to that number.
You're just saying this week's Okay.
This week's cost was $47 on average.
Okay.
And then so we can take that number, we can add it, and just to clarify, this is our new customer AOV, not the total AOV on Shopify, specific to new customer revenue. Then we can also take our new customer cost of acquisition, add those together, and that is our total cost to acquire a new customer, excluding all business expenses. If you want to give this to the client and say, add in your business expenses here, if they have that information, you can get a lot more granular. But for our case, this is about as specific as I think we can really be. So I don't think most customers or most clients are going to give us that information. And then, yeah.
How are you generating the new customer orders? Is that coming from Triple Whale?
Shopify.
Shopify's okay. You're just using and are you okay? How are we distinguishing the AOV for them? Is that available in Shopify too?
That's a bit of a calculation, but it's pretty simple. So you can take new customer revenue divided by new customer orders, and then you get the new customer AOV.
Okay, we can parse out what a new customer is and what they bought.
Yep. Yeah, I can show that to you really quickly. And that's another benefit to using this tracking sheet, is that you can get away from using Triple Whale and some of those other third-party attribution platforms. It's specifically for
customer acquisition, which is generally the most important anyway. You really can tell them if you're using this. You just don't need to pay the $400 or $500 or whatever the Triple Whale
exactly
costs.
Yeah, and for smaller clients, that's a big chunk.
Oh yeah.
So if you can, and I think that honestly just makes us a little bit more sticky too. Like if you can say, hey, I don't think you need to pay that extra money, why don't we just use that for ads or something to that effect, where you're benefiting them.
Okay, so this is going to be in the cohort analysis where you get the revenue. Is that?
No, you can just click actually on sales by channel, and then you can segment this out to first-time buyers. Click here. I think it's customers, customer type.
Oh yeah.
First time.
Yeah.
And then you can get total customers or total new customers, and then total new customer revenue.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I think it makes sense that, you're giving the client a lot of really good information from that. And then to get the profitability, all you'll need to do is take so this is new customer acquisition profitability, just to clarify. You can take your new customer AOV and just minus that figure that we found out before.
So this lower left section, you're just doing a new calculation every week based on the previous week.
Yeah, you don't even need to do it really every week. Just if the client wants this information, it's good to have it on hand and available. And then if we want to look at this on a broader time frame, we can look at LTV as well. And this is another benefit to like a third-party attribution platform like a Triple Whale, but we again don't necessarily need them. I've been using this app most recently, Datadrew, and it's something that the client can install on their website. I think it costs about $40 a month, but they have a 7-day free trial. So the company's probably not going to love that I'm saying this, but you can download this, get the client to sign in and do all that. Take your 7 days to get all of your information, and then remove it, and the client doesn't need to pay anything. And you got all of this extra data around LTV and all the different stuff that I can show you here in a sec.
Is this almost as good as a more expensive tool like Triple Whale?
Yeah, because it's using their immediate Shopify information. So I think it's got to be spot on, right?
So you don't even have to delete it. I mean, for $40, you can get almost as much information. You might as well keep it if you're running a lot of transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want for $40, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And you can select your time frame. I went 2 years with these guys, but you can extend for the life of the business. And you can get very top line metrics. So you can go AOV, new customers, LTV for month 1, 3, 6, 12, 24, and up to 3 years. For the purpose of this business, they wanted to see what the realized return would be over the course of 12 months as opposed to 24. So we went just within a year. So that's where this number comes from, the 229. But while I'm in here, there's some other really cool information that we can gain from this app. There's one, the basket analysis is pretty cool. So basically just seeing what products are purchased most frequently in conjunction with each other. This client's a little bit skewed because they use that order protection. So the order protection is like tagged with every single product. But you can go through and say, okay, like the lifeguard brief and the body brief are purchased frequently together. So we could theoretically start pushing that as more of a bundle on their website, as an example. There's also a repurchase rate, which is, I find, really cool. And you got to do some digging to figure this information out. But essentially, what I can find is that their lifeguard brief also is one of the products that is most frequently purchased by new customers, but also has a really high repurchasing rate of other products.
If they bought that, then that customer buy 27% of those customers.
Yeah, they buy another product in the future.
They're saying that that product is one of the bigger hooks.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an entry-level product. So you can see like our AOV for the first time purchase is relatively low, 166. But the LTV on that is 447.
Okay, you're not telling me a pair of underwear costs 166.
I think they're probably buying multiples, but not far off. Like I would say
that's a really high AOV for an underwear company, which I guess they're doing more of, but I see the word brief a lot, so maybe not.
I think it's they might honestly be like $75-$80 for a pair. Yeah. It's kind of crazy, but anyway, it's like a relatively cheap product in consideration of their product line. So for anybody to be able to come in here and purchase this product, it's a really good entry level purchase price, and it leads to a really high LTV. So kind of a cool thing to know that maybe if we're targeting new customer acquisition, expanding on this product throughout the imagery and different product pushes on socials and even on Google could be a really cool avenue to pursue.
Yeah.
And just one more thing that's really cool about this app is these different segments that it provides. So basically they break down the entire the client's customer list into different segments. So they've got a champion list, a loyal, promising, and so on down the list. And the way that I use these is the champions and the loyal are kind of like their two best audiences, essentially. So I take these two and I create lookalikes out of them. So I take their champion list, which is people who have spent the most frequently. So that's like the best customer you could ask for, essentially. And then their loyal is spend often in good amounts. So these are kind of the top two tier clients.
So it's kind of a combination of total revenue and total purchases. And this is pulled from Shopify, and you create a lookalike out of them.
Yeah. And you can just export this data right from here.
Okay.
Yeah. So very cool. And then in addition to that,
does this have an email like tool within it, or is it's just for audio? Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or sorry, no, this doesn't.
But
this doesn't have it.
You can connect to Klaviyo and send it just to one of those segments if you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like the second part of this. So the promising, which is people who are right around that balance, that tipping point of becoming like a champion purchaser, needs attention, and then should not lose is people that used to make high purchases but have slowed down recently. Those are really great for your email marketing segments. So that's why this would be so beneficial to connect to Klaviyo and say, these promising people, let's hit them up again. Let's make them champion purchasers. Needs attention. Well, let's continue to pursue those people and get them back into our good graces and then should not lose. Maybe they just haven't seen a good offer recently. We should expand on that to them.
So once you connect it to Klaviyo, then you can go into Klaviyo, you can create an email for them and just pick the audience that it's that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good tool for $40.
Yeah. Or if you don't have Klaviyo, you could just export it, and if like you still use MailChimp or something like that, export it and upload it to whatever platform you're using. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like for $40 a month, like you said, it's got a lot of good data in it. And if the client doesn't want to pay for it, in this case, they didn't find it to be that beneficial outside of what I gave them information-wise. So they're just going to delete it and won't need to pay for it. And essentially, I just record a loom going over basically what I just talked about. And then that information is saved on a video recording. So if we ever want to go back and look at it, we can, and the client gets the deep dive. And then, so the same thing can be said for calculating our 12-month profitability. So you can take that 292 that we figured out from our LTV. You could even get a little bit more granular with it and go to your new customer segment within here and figure out what your new customer LTV is. But I'm just using their total LTV for this purpose. And then you just minus what our effective cost per new customer acquisition is. And yeah, and that's, so this specific client just wanted some more profitability numbers to pass along to their finance department. And they were super happy with this. And so, yeah, I figured I'd just share it.
Takes you 4 or 5 minutes to update the sheet every week. But other than that, you've got a lot of data at your fingertips.
Yeah. And then, so this one I brought up before, this is kind of the use case scenario of it where we're on multi-channels. And essentially what we're doing is kind of highlighting, like, this was a really crappy week. So we highlighted in red and tried to distinguish what could have happened on prior to this week or during this week that affected it. And then what we're also doing is what I'm doing is adding in anything specific that we're changing on that particular week. So this week we added $25 a day to a broad campaign with a top 10 income level. And then we added $25 a day the next week. And then we removed $25 a day from the top 10 income. So what you're able to do by marking down what happened on that particular week, if there's a longer buying cycle, you can say, okay, whatever we did this week, maybe 3 weeks later, it had this effect where we saw really low revenue. And the more time you spend doing this, you can come up with maybe some assumptions on what could be taking place, where you made this change 2 weeks earlier. Okay, that actually had a negative effect and we just didn't realize it for a couple of weeks. And you can see those trends the longer that you do this. And then having these graphs is kind of cool too. Just changing up what you want to see side by side, trying to understand how different metrics accompany each other or affect each other.
And that new MER is the blue, and then the overall MER is the red line.
Yeah. No, sorry, opposite.
Vice versa. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, different metrics here. I'm still playing around with what's going to be the most important. And I think that's probably something that's going to fluctuate depending on the client. It's going to change whatever that client is most interested in, creating a graph on it, or even changing graphs based on what's most important that week. So yeah, that is it. That's my whole thing. Does anybody have any questions? Anything else they want to look at?
No, that was very good. Applause.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like the Datadrew stuff.
Yeah, that's really surprising. I didn't know there was a tool out there that for that little could do that much.
Mhm.
And it tracks the NCACs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's even more to it.
Just by importing the Shopify cohort information, right? New customer information that you should. That's cool.
Yeah. So you can really get away from using the third-party tools because we know that they're not that accurate with attribution anyway. So if that's what you're using it for.
Do those rely on? Well, do they rely on the Shopify as well? The triple whale, or is it they do Google Ads and Meta Ads integration, and so it's dependent on their tracking pixels.
Yeah, but they use UTMs as well. But we're still finding so many use cases where it's still not accurate. Google, for the most part on those platforms, depending on which attribution model you look at, Google gets all the credit, even though it might not be what's moving the needle most.
Yeah. So in that sense, since it's relying on Shopify, it's likely to be much better than Triple Whale or Northbeam.
Yeah, and then you can use the tracking doc. Again, it's a little bit more of a manual process, but saving a client several $100s a month. Because I think Triple Whale is based on revenue. Last time I spoke to one of the reps, so it could be even more than that. It could be into the thousands, depending on how much revenue you're making.
Yeah, I think Northbeam is similar, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be even more expensive.
I haven't had anybody that does Northbeam ever. Well, no, I had one client that had it briefly, and then they went to Triple Whale. And I think Jonathan, we've seen a problem in the last week or two with Triple Whale attributing what was about half of the spend. I think the Triple Whale was finding half of the actual spend.
I think less than that. Yeah, it was very minimal. So
yeah, it was just totally broken. I don't know what would have caused that, but some sort of connection.
Yeah, weird. I had the same thing with Northbeam this last week too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sheet is really cool.
Hey everyone, Senior Client Manager Mel here with Solutions 8. Today we're going to talk about smaller clients who don't have the budget or the resources to have things like Northbeam and Triple Whale and how I manage their MER week over week. I've created a spreadsheet that I'm